Hi everyone, welcome to the Working Committee 2.1 meeting presentation for the Urbancrest Community Plan. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy. I'm Michael Burris, the new planner on staff with the Franklin County Economic Development and Planning Department. I'll be leading this project moving forward into the future, but some others who have been working on it and will continue to be involved include Jenny Snap, Matt Brown, and Terry Barr. The first item I'd like to address is the outline for this presentation. Since there has been a significant break in project activities, I'll start by providing an update on the planning process. Following, I'll review a summary of the results of the first public meeting. The full set of results can be found in the Public Meeting 1 Results and Draft Policy Recommendations document. Finally, I'll go over some of the goals we are proposing for the plan, as well as some ideas for land use and transportation recommendations. To update everyone, the Urbancrest Community Plan is currently in the policy formation phase. This phase is informed by the visions and data gathered from the first public meeting. The first public meeting helped identify what the community wants to look like in the future. Using this information, we will be working towards building a policy framework for making the visions a reality. To recap public meeting number 1, it was held in Urbancrest on September 12th of last year. There were over 40 residents of the community who participated in the process. Some folks participated in person at the event or some through online surveying. Participants provided data on what they like in Urbancrest, what they dislike, where the community's favorite places are, and preferences for how the community might develop and change in the future. Here's a selection of some of the most and least favorite places. The community highly values the YMCA facility, in addition to the surrounding grounds that provide recreation space. Survey respondents also enjoy the natural, undeveloped areas of the village. Places of worship and people's own homes are sources of pride in the community. For least favorite places, residents do not like that there is a significant amount of noise that is generated from the nearby large industrial uses, particularly from truck traffic. The Broadway commercial corridor is also seen in need of improvements. Finally, many residents express concerns about illegal criminal activities, such as drug dealing, that may be occurring on some residential properties. During the meeting, participants also provided feedback on a variety of community characteristics. Here are some sample statements from participants. They enjoy Urbancrest's small-town feel. They would like to age in place in the community, but need for more housing types to do so. Some commercial and residential properties are blighted. Speeding is an issue in the village. There is a need to keep pedestrians safe in the village, but the methods to do so, such as sidewalks or on-street markings, do not have a unanimous agreement. And finally, there are undeveloped green spaces that are enjoyable. During the first public meeting, residents indicated whether the visions for the community that were presented during the meeting should be kept or revised. All of the vision statements were unanimously agreed upon. Because of the number of statements we received regarding speeding and access difficulties to the outlying street network, we decided to also include a vision statement for roadway infrastructure. This vision sets out to improve vehicle access while also improving the safety of all transportation modes. The methods to achieve this will be determined during the formation of goals and actions for the plan. So now that we have the baseline community preferences and visions established, we can move on to making policy recommendations. These are drafted from the information gathered from the first public meeting, recorded statements from stakeholders, and the county strategic plan. Policy recommendations can be thought of as goals or stepping stones to achieve the community's vision. Once agreed to, we will work with the working committee to develop actions or specific ways of accomplishing the goals. The overarching goals section is structured like the vision section of the plan. There are the 3 main categories: community development, transportation and infrastructure, and parks and recreation. These are then broken up into subcategories that correspond with a vision. As we go over the goals, please take down notes, comments, ideas, or questions that you may think of. Although we won't go over a comprehensive set of action steps until the next working committee meeting, feel free to jot down actions you think would help achieve a goal to let us know. We will also present the revised goals during the Working Committee 2.2 meeting. So moving on to the goals for land use. The first land use goal is to maintain the small town character of Urbancrest. Land uses should ensure that the community can develop in a way that puts people first, facilitates relationship building, and creates a built environment that enhances the existing small town feel. Secondly, we propose that existing properties are revitalized. As many noted, there are a number of residential and commercial properties that could use renovations. Revitalization and adaptive reuse of existing structures allows for a mix of old and new buildings that ensures that the character of the area does not dramatically change. Finally, enable reuse of vacant properties. We received many comments that vacant properties are not well maintained. By putting the land to use, ongoing maintenance will be encouraged. This can include development, but it can also be less intensive uses like community gardens or passive or active recreation. Regarding development, new commercial and residential projects should be built to a high standard that creates a good image for the community. Secondly, commercial uses adjacent to residential areas should be uses that are typical of small downtowns. So this is like salons, cafes, small restaurants that promote the local economy. Finally, the scale of development should be incremental. In keeping with the small town feel, new commercial development should ensure walkability and human scale. This is to say that buildings are generally smaller near detached single-family homes and gradually increase in size with use intensity. To build a strong sense of community, it is important to develop a strong sense of place informed by the village's history, such as highlighting historical resources or civic art that highlights historical figures and events. Second, improve the village's overall appearance through decorative elements like streetlights, landscaping projects, things of that nature. Third, support a local food system through developing community gardens or support the creation of a food market or food business incubator. Next, to create housing for all demographics, support land use and building code policies that enable aging in place for all ages and abilities. This is sometimes referred to as universal design. Second, encourage infill housing on vacant land that is zoned residential. Infill will create more housing options that can accommodate persons of all age demographics. Finally, renovate existing dilapidated residential structures. New builds can be more expensive than reusing older structures, so reuse can promote and maintain residential affordability. On to transportation-related goals. For walking, the goal is to improve pedestrian safety. While there was not an approach that respondents universally agreed upon, people did agree that pedestrians should be able to safely walk around the village. How this is accomplished could be through a mix of sidewalks and on-street walking paths. For transit, the goal is to make transit more attractive and accessible. Respondents indicated that they would be more likely to take the bus if there were bus stop amenities that improve the experience of waiting for the bus, such as bus shelters and benches. Additionally, in order to facilitate the goal of aging in place, accessibility, such as routes to the bus stops themselves, should be improved for seniors or persons with mobility impairments who may not drive. For roadway infrastructure, one goal is to improve connectivity to the outlined street network for cars. This goal is based on feedback received that it is difficult and unsafe to make a left-hand turn out of the village onto Broadway. Alternate and signalized routes allow for bypasses in the event of unexpected blockages and periods of high traffic. Also, because speeding was a commonly reported problem, a second goal is to ensure that roadway infrastructure encourages following speed limits through methods like narrowing streets or installing speed tables, humps, bumps, etc., which are commonly referred to as traffic calming mechanisms. Next, some goals for parks and recreation. The first goal is to preserve some of the village's existing green space and create additional park facilities. Based on the submitted feedback, the natural feel in Urbancrest is a positive characteristic, so as the community changes over time, an effort should be made to strategically preserve natural areas. Similarly, new park space could be carved out from existing vacant land to increase park capacity. Second, repair existing pedestrian paths and create more opportunities for walking and biking. This goal would further the vision of enabling more active lifestyles and creating more recreational opportunities across different ages and abilities. To kickstart the conversation on the policy actions to achieve the suggested goals, we created vision maps for what Urbancrest land use could look like in the future. We would like the committee to evaluate these concepts for their desirability. Keep in mind that these maps are guidelines to help make land use decisions if and when development is proposed. It does not change anyone's existing rights of how they can use their land. The envisioned land use only comes into consideration when a property owner proposes to change how they can use their land from what they are permitted by existing zoning. So here is the proposed future land use map. This is an overview, so we'll zoom into sections of Urbancrest for greater detail. But as a general consideration, most of the village west of the railroad tracks is proposed to remain residential in character. The proposed land use in the existing large-scale commercial and industrial areas is not proposed to change. However, it is suggested that the thickly wooded area in the southwest corner of Urbancrest, circled in black at the below, which is currently zoned industrial but is undeveloped, be protected as a natural space to accommodate passive recreation like walking trails through the woods. Next, let's zoom to the Broadway corridor for more detail. The outlined area is proposed to accommodate mixed-use retail, residential, and offices due to its visibility on Broadway and access to transit. Moving west towards the train tracks, a gradual scaling down of intensity is proposed. The hatched red area could accommodate parking for the larger mixed-use buildings along Broadway, or it could accommodate small-scale, two-story mixed-use buildings. Further reducing in intensity, the brown parcels would either be townhomes or duplexes. Crossing the railroad tracks, the corner parcels along Augustus are proposed to be reserved for park spaces over time. Landscaping could be installed on these parcels, thereby screening the existing residential village core from the more intensive uses across the railroad tracks and screening the railroad tracks themselves. Landscaping would also dampen noise generated from passing trains. Moving further into the interior of the village, there are two community commercial areas proposed. The first is located off First Avenue behind Union Baptist Church. This is an old school building that could potentially become a local market or small business incubator. However, the feasibility of reusing this building for such purposes isn't known at this time. The second community commercial space is at the intersection of Central and Main. This could be an area that resembles a traditional town square or downtown, with small, locally owned shops that serve the everyday needs of residents. The corridors of First and Central Avenues, circled here, are main thoroughfares through the village, and therefore higher residential densities may be appropriate in these corridors. It is proposed to have either townhomes or duplexes in these areas, extending no further than Main Street, with access provided by rear alleys to reduce the number of curb cuts on First and Central Avenues and create walkable streets. This is shown in the map in solid brown. The surrounding parcels, shown in hatched brown and indicated with the pointer, then scale down as duplexes or detached single-family homes on small lots. Finally, in order to accommodate more multifamily and senior housing, high-density residential is proposed to be expanded along Augustus in the circle, near where there would be abundant access to recreation, community resources, and municipal services. Next up, we'll present some concepts we are proposing for transportation infrastructure. Similar to land use visions, these recommendations are a guideline for the future. This image is an overview of all the proposals. We will go over each proposal piece by piece. Before moving on, note that the interior of the village only has limited pedestrian infrastructure, such as sidewalks and a pedestrian lane, in strategic locations. Urbancrest currently has limited infrastructure for pedestrians. The main sidewalks are located along Broadway, Urbancrest Industrial Drive, and around the Bending Brook development. These areas are highlighted in green on the map. We're proposing that sidewalks be located through the main corridors of Urbancrest. These areas are designated on the map on the dashed teal. The First Avenue sidewalks would provide linkages to the YMCA and other community facilities. This is here. It would also provide access to the proposed neighborhood commercial area located in the old school. Similarly, the other corridor on Central would provide pedestrian access to the proposed neighborhood commercial center at Central and Main, located here. The Bending Brook development would be connected to the First Avenue sidewalk through an extension along the west side of Augustus Court, located here. Finally, the area east of the railroad tracks, which is proposed to have the most intensive mixed-use development, has a nearly comprehensive sidewalk network. To provide a connection between the sidewalk on First Avenue and Central Avenue, an on-street pedestrian lane is accommodated on the east side of Main Street. This is demonstrated on the map as a red dash located here. To provide safe street crossings at key recreation areas, crosswalks are recommended near the YMCA and at Mayor's Park. Mayor's Park here, and the YMCA crossing here. These crossings can be raised from the road, called a speed table, to calm speeding traffic. Moving on to bicycles. There's currently no infrastructure for bicycles in Urbancrest. However, Grove City has an existing on-street bike lane nearby on Southwest Boulevard. This is shown at the bottom of the map as the solid blue line. This lane provides a connection all the way to the campus that contains Bolton Crossing Elementary, Holt Crossing Intermediate, and Central Crossing High School. We're proposing that a multi-use path, an off-street bike and pedestrian path, connect Urbancrest along Lewis Center Way to Southwest Boulevard. This is in the blue dashed line here. Additionally, a multi-use path is included along Wallace Lane and 4th Avenue to serve the proposed mixed-use area here. A stub is accommodated off of 4th Avenue to provide a potential future connection to the road stub to the south in Grove City, thereby providing an eastern access to the bike lane on Southwest Boulevard. The stub is located here. To connect the proposed multi-use paths on both ends of Urbancrest, on-street bicycle markings, sometimes called sharrows, and signage are proposed. These are demonstrated on the map as blue dotted lines. A connection is also included for Bending Brook. These routes run along the main east-west corridors on 1st, Central, and 3rd Avenues, with north-south connections on Main and Augustus Streets. In order to provide bicycle access at the intersection of Lewis Center Way and 3rd Avenue, the gate should be replaced with bollards that allow bikes to travel through, while also restricting vehicle access. That is located here. Finally, a crossing for the multi-use path is included on 4th Avenue to increase user visibility and therefore improve safety, located here. Moving on to transit. There are no new stops for the Coda number 3 bus proposed. However, it is proposed to include some bus stop improvements at the stop central to Urbancrest. These stops are highlighted in yellow on the map. These improvements could be shelters, benches, or other improvements that improve the experience of waiting for the bus. As for roadway infrastructure, 2 modifications are proposed. The first is a lighted intersection at the intersection of Central Avenue and Broadway, here. This would provide easier access to the northbound bus stop that is proposed to have improvements, as well as better facilitate left-hand turns at peak traffic times. Finally, it is proposed to open the intersection of 2nd Avenue and Lewis Center Way to vehicle traffic, located here. This would provide an alternate route for residents traveling westward, access to Southwest Boulevard for left-hand turns, and provide emergency services an alternate access point from the west end of Urbancrest. So that concludes our presentation on the Public Meeting 1 results and draft policy recommendations document. The next step is to get the working committee's input. First, there will be a conference call feedback session that I'll talk more about in a moment. Second, following the conference call, please put your finishing touches on your feedback form and send it back to us. You can mail it with the self-addressed envelope we provided, or you can scan and email it to me. For the conference call feedback session, please vote for a time and date on Zvite and check your email for the invitation. I'll also be sending the URL out again. We'll try to schedule the meeting for the time and date that has the most overlap of everyone's availability. And once we figure that out, I'll let everyone know over email the details, including the instructions for how to access the call. Looking forward to the next working committee meeting. I would plan on it being in the same format, so another remote meeting. This will be subject to change depending on the recommendations for social distancing. Right now, tentatively, this meeting will be the week of May 4th. Finally, if you have any questions or concerns, here's my contact information. Email right now is the best way to reach me since I'm working from home, but I'm also still checking voicemail. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and I look forward to further discussion. Take care.